It's time for the 420 Radio News, covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Transcripts of 420 Radio News are available daily on our website at 420radio.org. Now, here's Priscilla Simon.
Hi folks, this is your 420 Radio News for Friday, June 20th, 2014. The New York Senate has passed a heavily modified bill that means the Empire State will soon become the 23rd medical marijuana state. In a 49-10 vote, the Senate passed the bill after legislators conceded to the demands of Governor Andrew Cuomo. Gone are lupus, diabetes, and post-concussion syndrome from the list of qualifying conditions. Cancer, epilepsy, multiple sclerosis, ALS, Parkinson's disease, Huntington's disease, neuropathies, certain spinal cord injuries, inflammatory bowel disease, HIV or AIDS will qualify, but only if the disease causes certain symptoms, including severe chronic pain, nausea, wasting syndrome, or muscular spasms. Alzheimer's disease, muscular dystrophy, dystonia, post-traumatic stress disorder, and rheumatoid arthritis might be added if the State Health Commissioner signs off within the next 18 months. The State Health Commissioner will also set the price of marijuana, and patients will only be allowed to purchase 2 ounces every 30 days from one of 5 statewide dispensaries and taxed at 7%. The law goes into effect 18 months after the governor signs it, unless the state police superintendent or State Health Commissioner wants to delay it for any reason. The law sunsets in 7 years unless the state police superintendent or state health commissioner suspend the program at any time they choose.
Wow. This is pretty restrictive. It's like a competition. If you're trying to ask what's the most restrictive medical marijuana law, New Jersey, Illinois, New York, Minnesota, they all are pretty restrictive to one degree or another. One of the things I think was funny about this bill is it seems that patients are still going to be able to get a hold of flour. I haven't seen anything that says they can't get flour. In fact, everything still refers to them having a 2-ounce supply every 30 days, but supposedly smoking is banned. So how exactly do you ban smoking? What do you send someone to everyone's house to make sure they're not rolling it up in a doobie, that they're forced to have to use a vaporizer? I mean, is this really what the governor was fighting all this time about, was over a ban that's pretty much unenforceable? I mean, at least in Minnesota, when they said no smoking, they said no plant, and then you couldn't get a hold of it. Oh, wait, shh. I better just shut up before Governor Cuomo figures out what he did.
A Texas teenager facing life in prison for pot brownies turned down a plea deal in court on Thursday. Jacob Lavado, age 19, was arrested in April for possession of 1.5 pounds of pot brownies and a pound of usable marijuana, along with digital scales and baggies. Texas law charges defendants for the weight of the brownies, not the marijuana used to make them. Since Lavado used hash oil to make the brownies, and hash oil is treated much more harshly than marijuana, Lavado is facing 5 to 99 years in prison, a penalty worse than the sentence for manslaughter. Quote, this is a prime example of how our criminal justice tax dollars are going to waste, end quote, said Tristan Tucker, Deputy Director of Dallas-Fort Worth NORML, who is among dozens of supporters who rallied outside the courthouse. Lavado turned down a plea deal to reduce the charge to a second-degree felony, punishable from 2 to 20 years in prison. His lawyer, Jack Holmes, wants to see the charge dismissed, reduced to a misdemeanor, or go to trial.
Yeah, and this is really brave of him to do this, to pass up this plea deal. But there's a certain precedent here, and that is the weight of the hash oil in the brownies is what's being used against him. If he'd have made the same plate of brownies, even at the same potency, right? Like say he'd put in, 4 times as much pot in it to get it the same potency as what the hash oil might have been. he still would have only been subject to about a misdemeanor. Looking up the Texas laws, if you go to the normal.org website out there, and let me just pull this up real quick, normal.org/laws/TX, and you can find your state laws the same way, normal.org/laws/your state abbreviation. And in Texas, you have to have, and I believe it's a fairly big amount, 2 ounce possession or less, up to a quarter pound is just misdemeanor. Right, so he could have put a quarter pound of weed into those brownies and still only been charged with a misdemeanor with a possibility 1 year. But the possession of concentrates, hash oil in the state of Texas, less than 1 gram is a felony. The residue in your empty vapor pen is a felony worthy of 180 days to 2 years. And since he had possession of more than 400 grams, apparently it's the 10 years to life that he's facing there. So I think the lawyer here is going off of and I'm just speculating, but going off the idea that pot brownies are pot brownies. It doesn't matter whether hash oil went into them or weed went into them. You should be, treating them the same. The other thing to come out of this story that's really hopeful is how all of the organizations in Texas, all of the Texas Normal chapters throughout the state are rallying around this cause. They were selling T-shirts there, Justice for Jacob, at the rally there at the courthouse. They were there from like 4 hours during that day, with people seeing them and seeing the signs and everything and bringing exposure to it. This Sunday in El Paso Normal is doing a bowling thing for him. You can go and bowl there, and I forget the lanes or whatever, but if you look up El Paso Normal, you'll be able to find this. And it's like $10 for the lanes and the shoes, and it's a fundraiser that helps for his defense fund. And, if he's going to go to trial on this, trying to beat this felony, this life imprisonment for pot brownies, he's going to need a lot of money. Please help him out if you can. He's also got a funder on GoFundMe.com. Name is Jacob Lavaro, Lavaro. Check it out.
Tourists spent $4 billion in Colorado in 2013, setting an all-time record. In the first year of constitutionally legal marijuana, there was a 12% increase in tourism over 2012. Colorado saw 27.1 million vacationers in 2013. There were 14 million in Denver alone. Of those 14 million in Denver, 5.5 million were what tourism officials call, quote, marketable visitors, the people who could afford to travel anywhere as opposed to family visits. Those visitors were up 13% from 2012, and Denver is 4 points better than the national average. Ski resort visits were up 10% from 2012 to a record 12.6 million. Even as some Second Amendment groups called for boycotts of Colorado for its new gun control laws, it doesn't seem that has had any effect. Tourism officials have doubts that legal marijuana is behind the increase in tourism, or perhaps they just don't want to admit it.
Well, I find Denver to be a wonderful place to visit, aside from the trek out to the airport out in Kansas there. But it's a great place to visit. And now with legal marijuana, I think what people are going to find out is that it really doesn't make that much difference. People who liked weed and wanted to go to Colorado for weed, we're already going to Colorado for weed. I mean, we were already visiting, right? And people that aren't into weed that wanted to go to Colorado, it's not going to matter that weed is legal. They'll still want to go for the mountains or the streams or whatever nature-y stuff you do out there in Colorado. So that's the thing, is all these prohibitionists that came out and said, oh my God, we legalize marijuana, these terrible things are going to happen, are coming to it from the point of view as if legalizing marijuana invents it. As if there aren't already a bunch of people already smoking it. And like one of my followers on Twitter said the other day, I always ask prohibitionists, if we legalize weed, are you going to smoke it? And they say no. You then ask, so why is anybody else? Right? If someone wants to smoke it, they are. There might be a few people that try it, give it a shot. But generally, any effects we were going to see from legalized weed, we would have already seen by now with the weed that already exists.
Pope Francis has come out with a strong condemnation for the legalization of recreational drugs. The pontiff, speaking to an audience at the International Drug Enforcement Conference in Rome, said even limited attempts at marijuana legalization, quote, are not highly are not only highly questionable from a legislative standpoint, but they fail to produce the desired effects. Pope Francis said in a speech last year in Brazil, quote, "A reduction in the spread and influence of drug addiction will not be achieved by a liberalization of drug use. Rather, it is necessary to confront the problems underlying the abuse of these drugs by promoting greater justice, educating young people in the values that build up life in society, accompanying those in difficulty, and giving them hope for the future."
Ah, doggone it, Pope Frank. Just when my atheist ass was eligible to go to heaven, you have to come out with this.
I thought we were homies, man. Come on. You were there for days. Like, what's up, dude?
I know. He was doing so good. He had all that great stuff to say about capitalism and homosexuality. He was fine with the gay folks. He's fine with the atheists, but doesn't like the pot smoking. And I think part of this is, drug use is kind of a competition with religion. Right? Religion kind of sells this, euphoria in a sense, and so does pot. So maybe there's a competition aspect to it. And I also think these type of folks, they mentor to so many people who are in the grips of serious addiction problems or go to these most impoverished places where drug violence runs rampant, and they confuse serious addiction problems and drug violence with marijuana use, which doesn't have to have any of that if it's legalized. Pope Francis, I would hope that if you believe in, what did you say, quote, promoting greater justice, you would understand that locking away a teenager in Texas for life for pot brownies is in no way promoting a greater justice.
While localities in West Coast states with medical and recreational marijuana seem to generate headlines for their moratoriums and bans, one East Coast city is approving both medical marijuana dispensaries and recreational pot shops before either of them are actually legal. Cocoa Beach, Florida's commissioners voted 4-1 to pass an ordinance regulating where any kind of marijuana retailer, medical or recreational, could operate if voters approve the medical marijuana amendment this November, and then legalize marijuana at some later date. Pot shops will have to be 200 feet from major roads, and a buffer zone is established from churches, schools, and residences. However, the one no vote came from a council member who explained the ordinance was too restrictive, that it basically regulated any future pot shops in just 2 areas of the city.
Yeah, this is one of those, on the one hand, on the other hand kind of things. Like, on the one hand, they could be voting to ban. They could be putting in a preemptive, when Florida passes this thing in November, we're not going to be in it. We're going to ban it, right? But as a constitutional amendment, I don't know that they really have that power. So perhaps what they're looking at is, all right, if at least we step up and regulate it, we can push it out to just that one spot in the city, where like the sex toy shops are and the strip clubs or whatever it is. I don't know. I haven't looked at their actual zoning map, but that's kind of the feel I've got for what they're doing here. Reading a couple of the pieces on this, it kind of explained that the 4 commissioners that were in favor of this kind of had that attitude that, hey, legal medical is coming for sure. Legalization may be coming in the future. If we don't put it out there now, we're not going to have any control of it once it becomes legal. And that is kind of a bad attitude, but at least it's a better attitude than what they had in California, which is just let it run like, rampant like wildfire, and then we'll stamp it all out once everybody gets upset about it.
Right.
Hey, it's 4:20 in the Mountain Time Zone, where marijuana use is constitutionally legal, and Priscilla's got an important safety meeting to attend to. Thank you so much, and have fun next Monday. We'll talk to you then.